All right, well, hello, fifth graders. We're moving right along here in Chapter 8. Today our focus is add, put your answers in simplest form, make mixed numbers if needed. Now, yesterday our focus was on making equivalent fractions, but using a common denominator, and we focused on using the least common denominator. And when I do these videos and when we do problems together in class, I am going to enforce and push the issue of using the least common denominator. Because when we use the least common denominator, first of all, it's always easier to work with smaller numbers. Secondly, it is less likely that you're going to make a mistake if you're using smaller numbers. So, you'll remember what we did yesterday. We were given two fractions, and in this case now it's an addition problem, 2/3 and 1/12. We looked at the denominators, 3 and 12. We took the bigger one and we started listing multiples. So with 12, I'm going to think, well, 12 times 1 is 12. Now, I know that 12 will work because 3 times 4 is 12. So both of these fractions are going to be turned into something over 12. So 2/3 is going to become something over 12. This is already 1 over 12, so my 1 over 12 is going to stay the same. Now, what did I do to 3 to get 12? Remember that this is always about multiplication and division, okay? And so I know, well, I did 3 times 4 to get 12. So I have to do 2 times 4. And 2 times 4 is 8. So I end up with 8 over 12 plus 1 over 12. Well, 8 over 12 plus 1 over 12, 8 plus 1 is 9. And once you have the denominators the same, that 12 just stays a 12. All right? You don't do 12 plus 12 and get 24. That's not what you do. You have to find that common denominator, and then that common denominator stays the same. But it says to put them in simplest form if needed. Well, this is not going to become a mixed number because 9 is less than 12. However, remember what simplest form means. That the only number that can go into both the numerator and the denominator is 1. Well, this is once again, fifth grade, why it's good with fractions and at the place that you are to really be solid with those multiplication and division facts, okay? Simplifying fractions, making common denominators, all of those things are made much easier when we're really good with our multiplication facts. Now, I know that 3 can go into both 9 and 12. So I'm going to try to divide by 3. And so that's going to be divided by 3. That's going to be divided by 3. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. I end up with 3/4. Then I ask myself, well, is 3/4 in simplest form? Well, it is, because the only number that can go into both 3 and 4 evenly is 1. So that's as small as that's going to get. Now, 1 over 3 plus 3 over 8. 8 is the, and I'm going to go ahead and put a line up here so we don't get confused. We have that separation. 8 is the larger of the two denominators. 8 is larger than 3. So I'm going to think, well, 8 times 1 is 8. 8 will not work with 3. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 will not work with 3. I can't take 3 times something and get 16. Well, 8 times 3 is 24. And that will work because 24 is an answer in the 3 times tables because I know that 3 times 8 is 24. So in this situation, sometimes only one of them have to change. In this situation, both of the denominators have to change. So I think to myself, well, what did I do to 3 to get 24? I multiplied by 8. Remember, it's always multiplication and division with equivalent fractions. So I have to do 1 times 8. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. Well, 1 times 8 is 8. So I think, well, what did I do to 8 to get 24? Well, I multiplied it by 3. So I have to do 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. That leaves me with 8 over 24 plus 9 over 24. Well, 8 plus 9 is 17. And I know that my denominator 24 is going to stay at 24. And then I need to think about if 17 over 24 is in simplest form. And sure enough, 17 over 24 is in simplest form because the only number that can go into both 17 and 24 is 1. And I'm not going to turn this into a mixed number because 17 is smaller than 24. So that's a proper fraction. All right, a couple more examples with our video today. Our next one is 5 over 7 plus 1 over 2. 7 is my biggest denominator. Remember, the denominator is the bottom number. I'm not worried about the 5 or the 1 at this point. I'm focusing only on the denominators, 7 and 2. Well, I know that 7 times 1 is 7, and I can't take 2 times something and get 7, so 7's not going to work. 7 times 2 is 14, and I know that 14 will work because I know that 2 times 7 makes 14. So I have to do 1 times 7 to get this number here, and that's 7. And that makes sense, because just like 1 is half of 2, 7 is half of 14. Well, since I'm using 14, I have to change this one too to 14, and it's 7 times 2 to get 14, so I have to do 5 times 2 to get this number here. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. So I've got 10 over 14 plus 7 over 14. I know that 10 plus 7 is 17, and since 14 is my common denominator, that's going to just stay the same. Now, first things first, simplest form. I can be confident that 17 over 14 is in simplest form because the only number that can go into both 17 and 14 is 1. Now, I know that 2 can go into 14. I know that 7 can go into 14, but neither of those numbers can go into 17. The only number that can go into both 17 and 14 is 1. The issue with this one is that this is what we call an improper fraction, meaning that the numerator is larger than the denominator, which means that I need to make it a mixed number. Well, how do I make a fraction into a mixed number? Well, this is what I do. Remember, a fraction is just a fancy way of writing a division problem. As fifth graders, that's going to be something I start pointing out to you more and more. A fraction is just a division problem. As you get older into 7th grade, 8th grade, high school, it's just going to be expected that you understand that when you see a fraction, it means division. So this is 17 divided by 14. Now, that's not a very difficult problem. I know that 17 can go into 14 one time. Now, if I was actually to go and do this division problem, and if you would need to do the scratch work, go right ahead and do it. Don't be lazy. Be willing to do the scratch work. Well, I know 14 can't go into 1, but it can go into 17 one time. 14 times 1 is 14. 17 minus 14 is 3. Okay, so I would get 1 remainder 3, and I can have a remainder of 3 when I'm dividing by 14. When I make a mixed number, it's a whole number, 1, which is how many times 14 can go into 17. My numerator, 3. My denominator is 14, so my denominator is 14 there. I end up with 1 and 3 over 14. And I know that this is in simplest form because that was in simplest form. All right, once again, let's go ahead and draw a line to get that separation. 6 over 5 plus 2 over 3. So my denominators are 5 and 3. So I'm going to think, well, 5 times 1 is 5. I can't take 3 times something and get 5. So I got to go to 5 times 2. That's 10. I can't take 3 times something and get 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 will work with 15 because 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm going to come over here, and I know that 15 is the number I'm working with. As I said, 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm going to do 2 times 5 because I do the same thing to the numerator that I did to the denominator. 2 times 5 is 10. Now, if this one's becoming 15, this is also becoming 15. And as I stated before, we know that 5 times 3 is 15. So I have to do 6 times 3 because I'm doing the same thing to both the numerator and the denominator. 6 times 3 is 18. Well, 18 plus 10, I believe, is 28. My denominator, 15, will stay the same. All right, so now I'm thinking, okay, first of all, is this in simplest form? Well, I think it is. There's a lot of numbers that will go into 15, like 1, 3, 5, and 15. There's a lot of numbers that will go into 28, like 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, okay? But the only number that will actually go into both 15 and 28 is 1. So I'm comfortable with these numbers. However, 28 is bigger than 15, so I need to turn it into a mixed number. So remember, I just do the division problem because a fraction is a division problem. This is 28 divided by 15. Well, I know that 15, let's make that a little cleaner there. I know that 15 can't go into 2, but I believe that 15 can go into 28 one time. 1 times 15 is 15. 28 minus 15, well, 8 minus 5 is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. I'm okay with 13 being left over because that's smaller than what I'm dividing by, 15. So now I see, well, 15 can go into 28 one time. There are 13 left over, so that's my numerator. My denominator is 15. That's what I'm dividing by. I end up with 1 and 13 over 15. And I can be confident that this is in simplest form because this 28 over 15 is in simplest form. That's adding fractions with different denominators. All right, we'll talk to you later, 5th grade. Bye.